The message came in at 9:17 a.m., ordinary enough to slip past my guard. I was halfway through my coffee, scrolling without thinking, when my phone buzzed with that familiar family chat tone. The one that usually meant a birthday reminder, a forwarded prayer, or some awkward joke no one laughed at but everyone politely reacted to. I didn't rush to open it. I wish I had stayed that way, unaware for just a few seconds longer. The sender was my sister. "Don't come to Mom's birthday, we're sick of your family." No greeting, no explanation. Just that, sharp, final, public. For a moment my brain refused to process it. I reread the sentence again and again, like the words might rearrange themselves into something less cruel. But they didn't. They stayed exactly where they were, bold, unapologetic, and sitting there for everyone to see. A family group chat with cousins, uncles, aunts, and people who had watched us grow up, and now they were watching us get erased. My first reaction wasn't anger. It was embarrassment, that deep sinking kind that crawls up your neck and makes you feel smaller than you are. I imagined everyone reading it in real time, pausing, maybe tilting their heads, wondering what kind of people we must be to deserve that kind of message. I wanted to explain, to defend myself, to say something, anything that would make it clear this wasn't the whole story. But my fingers wouldn't move, because this wasn't just a message, it was a confirmation. For years, there had been signs. Little things people like to dismiss as misunderstandings. Invitations sent late, or not at all. Conversations that stopped when we walked into the room. Decisions made for the family, that somehow never included us. I told myself it was nothing, that families are messy, that love doesn't always look fair. I swallowed discomfort like it was normal, like it was the price of belonging. And now, with one sentence, my sister said out loud what she'd been implying all along: we weren't wanted. What hurt most wasn't that she felt that way. It was that she chose to announce it. She could have texted me privately. She could have lied. She could have softened it. Instead, she made it public, like a verdict handed down in front of a crowd. No trial, no defense. I looked at the read receipts. One by one they turned blue. No one replied. That silence was louder than the message itself. No one asking what happened. No one saying it was too harsh. No one stepping in to remind her that your family was still family. Just quiet, heavy, complicit. I thought of my mother, whose birthday this was supposed to be. I thought of all the times I'd shown up for her, carrying bags, covering bills when things were tight, sitting beside her when she was tired and didn't want to admit it. I thought of the birthdays we celebrated together before things got complicated, before love turned conditional and loyalty became a competition. And I wondered if she knew, or worse, if she did and said nothing. My phone buzzed again, another message. Not from the group chat, from my spouse. Did you see it? That's when the anger finally arrived, not explosive, not dramatic. It settled in my chest like a slow, burning fire, because now it wasn't just me. She hadn't just insulted me. She'd dragged my partner, my children, my entire household into her resentment. People who had done nothing but exist quietly, respectfully, on the edges of a family that never quite let them in. I typed a response, deleted it, typed another, deleted that too. Every version sounded defensive, emotional. Weak, and I realized something important in that moment. She expected a reaction. She wanted a fight or tears or some messy reply she could point to later and say, "See, this is why." I wasn't going to give her that, so I put the phone face down. I didn't leave the chat. I didn't respond. I didn't block anyone. I stayed, silent, watching. Because if there's one thing years of being underestimated teaches you, it's patience. When people think you're harmless, they get careless. They forget what you've done for them. They forget what you know. They forget what you've kept quiet to protect the peace. That message didn't end my place in the family. It exposed the truth of it, and as the day moved on, as the shock wore off and the hurt settled into clarity, I made a quiet promise to myself. I wasn't going to beg for inclusion. I wasn't going to chase apologies that wouldn't be sincere, and I definitely wasn't going to explode in a way that made me look like the problem. I would remember everything, because sometimes the sweetest revenge doesn't start with a shout. It starts with silence. The morning of my mother's birthday arrived with an unnatural quiet. No rush to get dressed, no last-minute gift wrapping, no drive across town rehearsing polite smiles and small talk. The calendar still marked the date in bold, but in our house it felt like the day had been erased. I woke up early out of habit, my body expecting a routine that no longer existed, and for a brief, disorienting moment I forgot about the message. Then the memory settled back in, heavy and unavoidable. We were not welcome. I made breakfast slowly, listening to the hum of the kettle, the clink of dishes, ordinary sounds that felt almost rebellious. This was supposed to be a family day, and here we were, deliberately excluded, like guests who had overstayed their welcome in someone else's story. My spouse didn't bring it up at first, neither did I. Some things feel too raw to touch, like they might bleed if you do. By mid-morning, the photos started appearing. A cousin posted a group picture, balloons, cake, matching smiles. Someone tagged my mother, wrote a caption about family love and togetherness. I stared at the screen longer than I should have, studying the frame like a crime scene. Everyone was there, even people who rarely showed up, even those who lived hours away, but somehow made the effort. The empty space where we should have been felt deliberate, like a hole cut out of the picture and smoothed over so no one would ask questions. I wondered how it had been explained. Maybe my sister said we were sick. Maybe she said we were busy. Maybe she didn't say anything at all. Confident no one would notice our absence enough to care. She had always been good at shaping narratives, at presenting decisions as necessities instead of choices. "It's for Mom's peace," she'd say. "It's better this way," as if exclusion was kindness and silence was protection. I thought back to all the times we had shown up when it wasn't convenient, long drives after work, canceled plans. Smiles, worn like armor because family matters. We had helped organize events, paid for things quietly, filled in gaps without asking for credit. And somehow, in the final version of the story, we were the problem, the ones who ruined moods, the ones people were sick of. The word echoed in my head. Sick, as if we were a disease, something to be kept away from the celebration so it wouldn't spread. Around noon, my phone buzzed again. A private message from an aunt. "Hope everything's okay. Missed you today." That was it. No follow-up, no curiosity. A soft acknowledgement wrapped in distance, like a knock on the door without waiting for it to open. I stared at the message, thumb hovering, then set the phone down. I wasn't ready to explain myself to people who hadn't defended me when it mattered. The hardest part wasn't missing the party. It was missing my mother, imagining her blowing out candles, laughing at jokes I'd heard 100 times, pretending everything was perfect. I wondered if she looked around the room and noticed we weren't there, if she asked why, or if she'd learned over time not to ask questions that might complicate things. There's a special kind of grief that comes from being excluded without confrontation, no argument, no dramatic fallout. Just a quiet decision made on your behalf, stripping you of the chance to speak. It leaves you questioning yourself, replaying memories, asking if you missed something obvious, if you deserved it somehow. But as the day went on, something shifted. I started to see the freedom in it. For the first time in years, I wasn't performing. I wasn't managing anyone's emotions. I wasn't shrinking myself to keep the peace. I took my kids out for ice cream. We laughed, unbothered, sticky, fingered and loud. My spouse caught my eye and smiled, the kind of smile that says, "We're okay, even if they aren't." That's when it hit me. They had taken away an invitation, not our dignity. Back home, as evening settled in, the group chat finally came alive again. Pictures, thank yous, compliments about the cake. My sister posted last, a carefully worded message about how peace matters more than appearances, and how she was protecting Mom's happiness. No one challenged it. A few heart emojis appeared underneath, validation without understanding. I read it once, then again. And instead of anger, I felt clarity. If protecting peace meant erasing us, then the peace was a lie. If love required silence, then it wasn't love. It was control. And if my sister needed to push us out to feel powerful, it meant she was afraid of something. Afraid of what we represented. Afraid of the truth we carried quietly, without ever throwing it in anyone's face. That night, after the kids were asleep, I sat in the dark living room and thought about everything we'd given, everything we'd tolerated. I realized something simple and unsettling. You can't lose a place you were never truly given. The birthday didn't just mark another year of my mother's life. It marked the end of my silence, and somewhere between the untagged photos and the forced smiles, I understood that being erased had given me something unexpected. A clear view of who was holding the pen and how easily the story could change. After the birthday passed, something inside me settled. Not healed, just focused. The kind of calm that comes when you stop hoping people will suddenly become fair. I didn't wake up angry anymore. I woke up observant. When you're pushed out of the noise, you start hearing patterns you once ignored. I went back through old messages first, not to torture myself, but to understand. Threads stretched back years, requests disguised as favors, guilt wrapped in politeness. Can you cover this just this once? Mom's stressed, don't make it harder. You're more responsible, you'll understand. I had always understood. That was the problem. Understanding had cost me boundaries, and silence had been mistaken for agreement. Then I looked at the numbers, bank transfers, shared expenses, receipts I'd never saved because I trusted the people involved. Rent covered during temporary crises, medical bills paid quietly, gifts labeled as from all of us, that had actually come from us. I didn't feel proud or bitter looking at it, just clear. Generosity has a way of disappearing when the story needs a villain. What struck me most was how consistently the help flowed in one direction. When we needed something, the response was always delayed, conditional, or redirected. When they needed us, urgency filled the air. Family, I had learned, was often defined by convenience. I didn't screenshot anything yet. I didn't confront anyone. I just organized folders, dates, notes. Not because I planned to expose them immediately, but because I finally accepted that memory alone was no longer enough. People forget, or pretend to. Proof doesn't argue, it waits. Meanwhile, the group chat continued like nothing had happened. Plans were made, jokes were shared. My sister spoke with the confidence of someone who believed the matter was settled. Occasionally, someone would send a vague message. Hope everyone's doing okay. The kind of thing that checks a box without opening a door. I responded politely when needed, brief, neutral, no emotion for them to dissect. That restraint confused them. I could feel it in the tone shifts, the sudden friendliness, the way my sister started mentioning me in conversations again, as if testing whether I'd snap back into place. People expect hurt to be loud. When it isn't, they grow uneasy. Silence doesn't give them anything to push against. In private, though, the truth was taking shape. I remembered the arguments that had been reframed as overreactions, the moments when I'd been told I was too sensitive, too dramatic, too much. Funny how those labels always appear when someone wants you to doubt your own experience. Funny how often they're used to protect the comfort of the loudest person in the room. What I was doing now wasn't revenge, it was reclamation. I stopped offering help automatically, stopped explaining myself. When requests came in, I asked questions instead of saying yes. When assumptions were made, I let them sit uncorrected. And slowly, subtly, the dynamic shifted. People who rely on your generosity panic when it isn't guaranteed. One evening, I found a message my sister had sent months earlier, buried in an old thread. Don't worry about telling them. She'd written to someone else. They won't say anything anyway. I stared at that line for a long time, not because it hurt, but because it confirmed everything. She hadn't just excluded us. She'd counted on our silence. That's when I understood the real power of patience. It isn't passive, it's deliberate. It's choosing the long view when others are focused on the moment. I wasn't waiting for an apology anymore. I was waiting for the right setting, for the truth to surface naturally without me forcing it. Because forced truth gets argued with, discovered truth doesn't. I didn't need to call a family meeting. I didn't need to send a dramatic message or drop receipts into the group chat like a grenade. That would have given them something to rally against. Instead, I let the cracks show on their own, inconsistencies in stories, confusion over who paid for what, awkward pauses when questions were asked that I didn't answer for them. People started noticing. A cousin asked me directly one day, casual but curious, "Didn't you help with that last year?" I smiled and said, "Yeah, a few times actually. And nothing more, no accusation, just fact. You'd be surprised how heavy a simple fact can feel when it's been avoided for years." By the end of that week, I knew something they didn't. I wasn't afraid of being misunderstood anymore. I wasn't trying to be liked, and I definitely wasn't chasing a place in a space that had shown me exactly how disposable it thought I was. I had the truth, I had the timing, and I had the calm that comes from knowing you don't need to raise your voice when the evidence speaks for itself. Whatever came next, it wouldn't be messy, it would be inevitable. The moment didn't arrive with fireworks or raised voices. It came quietly, almost politely, the way real consequences usually do. A family gathering was planned weeks later. Nothing major, just a casual dinner meant to bring everyone together. I wasn't officially invited. No one said I wasn't welcome either. The message was vague, intentionally so, as if uncertainty itself could erase what had already happened. I decided to go, not out of defiance, not to confront anyone, but because I no longer needed permission to exist in rooms where my name had been discussed without me. I arrived on time, dressed simply, calm enough to surprise even myself. When I walked in, conversations paused for half a second too long. Smiles followed, careful and unsure, like people trying to remember their lines. My sister froze first. It was subtle, but I saw it, the tightening around her eyes, the quick scan of the room, the calculation. She hadn't planned for this. She had planned for absence, for distance, for me to stay quietly where she had pushed me. Instead, I took a seat, greeted everyone warmly, and acted like someone who had nothing to hide, because I didn't. Dinner unfolded awkwardly at first. Small talk circled the table, stories were repeated. Then, inevitably, the conversation drifted to logistics, who had paid for what, who was handling upcoming plans, how things had been managed before. These were the moments I used to fill in automatically, smoothing confusion before it turned into discomfort. This time I let the silence breathe. When someone asked, "Didn't Mom's last party cost more than expected?" I nodded. It did. I didn't add the rest. When another relative said, "I thought everyone chipped in," I smiled and said, "Not exactly." No bitterness. No drama, just calm, measured truth. People looked around, waiting for someone else to clarify. My sister jumped in, laughing a little too loudly. "Oh, you know how things get mixed up." Her voice wavered. She was used to controlling the narrative, not competing with facts. But facts have weight. They land whether you want them to or not. A cousin asked me directly, "So how did it work?" And I answered, simply, clearly, dates, contributions, no accusations, no raised voice. Just the truth laid out like a map people could finally read for themselves. The room grew quieter with each sentence, not out of shock, but recognition. You could see it on their faces, the recalibration, the silent math. This wasn't the story they'd been told. My sister tried to interrupt once, then twice. Each time, someone else spoke instead. That's when I knew the shift had happened. Not because anyone defended me loudly, but because they didn't need to. The truth had moved from my mouth into the room, and it belonged to everyone now. Later, while plates were being cleared, my mother pulled me aside. She didn't apologize, not fully. She said, "I didn't realize how much you'd been carrying." It wasn't enough. But it was real, and for the first time I could accept it without shrinking myself to make her comfortable. My sister avoided me the rest of the night. She didn't text afterward. No explanation. No confrontation. Just distance, the kind that follows exposure, not victory. I didn't chase her. I didn't need closure from someone who had built their power on my silence. I had already reclaimed what mattered. In the weeks that followed, things changed in small but undeniable ways. Requests came with respect instead of assumption. Conversations included me without hesitation. Some people reached out privately, awkward but sincere, trying to bridge a gap they hadn't realized they were helping widen. And me, I didn't gloat. I didn't remind anyone of the message that started it all. I didn't need to. That text had done its job. It revealed who thought they could erase us without consequence. The sweetest part of it wasn't being believed. It was being free, free from proving my worth, free from explaining my boundaries, free from accepting crumbs in the name of family harmony. I no longer needed a seat at their table. I had built my own sense of belonging, one grounded in honesty and self-respect. That night, as I drove home, I thought about the message my sister had sent months earlier. How final it had sounded. How powerful she must have felt pressing send, and I smiled, not out of spite but understanding. She had tried to silence me. Instead, she taught me the strength of quiet truth, and in the end, it wasn't my words that changed everything. It was my refusal to disappear.